Hello, and welcome to tonight's live chapter reading of Journeys Through TimeSpace by James Talisman. That's brought to you by Itsy Bitsy Book Beds. Prologue. The adventures begin. The Ellipson Galaxy. Captain, we have arrived at the Talisman star system, called out the helmsman after the enormous starship dropped out of FTL. Very well. Navigate to the fourth planet in the solar system and maintain synchronous orbit above the planet. I must confer with the Ultimate Supreme, shouted Captain Crittison. Approaching the huge iron doors leading to the Ultimate Supreme's quarters, sweat began to cover the captain's face and body. Pure dread flooded Captain Crittison's mind as he nervously moved his finger towards the wall button to signal his presence. Before his finger reached the button, the huge doors slid open. Get inside, Captain. I have known about your intentions as soon as you left the bridge, growled a booming voice from inside what looked like a huge cave. Walking into the dimly lit space, the captain squinted as he looked towards the humongous figure approaching. Bowing deeply, Captain Crittison said, Your Majesty, we have arrived at the Talisman system and are approaching Dredison. Excellent. Follow me. I want to show you something, commanded the Ultimate Supreme as he walked further into the cave. Mounted against one of the walls was a huge monitor that displayed what appeared to be a map of the planet Dredison. On the map was a bright red dot. Using one of his huge fingers, the almost 9-foot-tall being touched the red dot to make it expand on the screen. Soon, the red dot enlarged to show what looked to be typography of an area in the southern hemisphere of the large planet system. Ellipson's supreme leader pointed to a spot on the enlarged image of the planet's surface. That indentation on this mountain is actually the entrance point to a vast underground complex. I want a landing party to go to this location and retrieve an extremely important artifact that resides within the mountain. Due to the importance of this mission, you will lead the retrieval team. As you desire, Your Majesty, I will begin preparations right away. Before you leave, there is more I need to share concerning this complex and the artifact. The Ultimate Supreme walked towards another room within the cave-like space. The captain quickly followed. The two giant reptilian humanoids walked into another cavern space with huge shelves of books and ancient documents lining all four walls. Reaching high towards one of the shelves, the Ultimate Supreme grasped an ancient scroll and took it to a large table in the room. The Ellipson leader carefully rolled open the extremely old scroll and placed some weights on each corner of the ancient document. The fully open manuscript appeared to be a map. This is a rudimentary drawing of the tunnel systems within the mountain I just showed you the entrance to, said the Ultimate Supreme. Looking at the map, Captain Crittison asked, What are those strange-looking symbols shown at different points in the tunnels? And what is that star-like symbol shown in the middle of the maze of passageways in the drawing? Those symbols represent both the obstacles and the accompanying puzzles that will need to be solved to overcome the hurdles you and your team will encounter as you move deeper into the mountain towards the star-like symbol in the middle of the drawing. That star symbol represents the artifact we need to power the planet destroyer weapon that is almost complete. What is this relic made of? Will we need a containment module to transport it in? You are asking a lot of questions, Captain. I suppose that is good. As for the artifact, many throughout the multiverse refer to it as the Philosopher's Stone. It is believed to have been created by an extremely ancient and powerful being. To ensure the relic never got into the wrong hands, its creator produced the elaborate maze and all the associated obstacles and puzzles. Only the most worthy can obtain and use this ancient source of power. Do you feel we are worthy to possess this artifact, Your Majesty? Time will tell, Captain. I hope I have chosen the right lizard to command this mission. Remembering the intense pain from not so long ago, Captain Crittison said, I promise, Your Majesty, I will not let you down. Very well then. I have a containment module and an archive of this library's contents that you will take with you on this quest. The Ultimate Supreme walked out of the library. The captain quickly followed his leader back into the office. After handing the captain a heavy square-shaped box and a mini computing device, the Ultimate Supreme said, This containment unit should shield against any potential radiation from the energetic relic, and the library archives reside within the device. You are still new aboard this vessel, so I will give you until morning to select and assemble members of the crew to join you on this mission. The huge reptilian humanoid stared down at the captain. I am counting on you to be successful. You know the consequences if we are not. I will obtain the artifact, Your Majesty. I will begin looking through the ship's personnel files right away. Captain Crittison bowed deeply to his superior before quickly leaving the cave to prepare for the most important mission of his life. Kathmandu, Nepal. Matt, Julia, and Dan walked off the bus and looked around at their new surroundings. The Kathmandu bus terminal and encompassing area was awash with men, women, and children meandering about the many makeshift vendor stalls set up to sell local goods and clothing to foreign tourists stopping or transferring to the next bus. Recognizing potential foreign tourists, dozens of local businessmen and women surrounded the three as they walked towards the main part of Kathmandu. Politely, the three former college students nodded and replied, "No, thank you," as each person asked them to inspect their wares. Spying a taxi in the distance, Matt waved his hand at the driver. The driver opened his car door and came over to the three. The taxi driver put his palms together while bending over slightly and said in broken English, "Namaste, where might I take you three?" Reaching into his pocket, Matt pulled out a wrinkled slip of paper containing an address scribbled in Nepali and handed it to the driver. "Can you please take us there?" The taxi driver nodded and motioned for them to put their duffel bags in the trunk he had just opened. As they headed towards the destination written on the paper, Dan moved his butt around and exclaimed, "Damn, my ass is sore, guys. That was one long bus ride." "I agree, buddy. My butt is sore too," Matt concurred. "Me 3, said Julia as she smiled at the two young men with her. Pondering the last few days, Matt was still slightly dazed from all the events leading up to the concurrent taxi ride. After Master Kenjison had completed his conversation with everyone, he gave Matt a slip of paper and told him they would need to go to that place in Kathmandu to meet their guides. Still slightly shaken from their recent experience on the yacht, the three worked with some of the Light Workers collective members to put together the gear they would need for their upcoming trek into the Himalayan mountains. With all three now exhausted, everyone agreed the three former college students should get some sleep before heading to Denver International Airport later that day. After hugging his parents, Matt turned and followed his friends out the door towards the parking garage in the underground bunker. Their flight to New Delhi was a long one that stopped in Narita, Japan, before proceeding to India. Once in New Delhi, the three boarded a train to Gorakhpur. From Gorakhpur, they took a couple buses to reach Kathmandu. After about 30 minutes driving through the heavy traffic in Kathmandu, the taxi arrived at an older building that appeared to be a pub and restaurant. Matt paid the taxi driver and thanked him before they grabbed their duffel bags and started towards the door of the pub. Walking into the dimly lit room, the three squinted as their eyes adjusted from the afternoon light experienced in the cab. A giddy gentleman in his early 50s came over to Matt, Julia, and Dan and said, "It is such a pleasure to meet the special trio that Master Kenjison has spoken so fondly of." After the three finished shaking with the fanciful dressed man's hand, Dan asked, "Would it be possible to get some food and drink? I'm starving." Speaking in slightly broken English, the man said, "Why, of course, my young friend. I will request food and drink for everyone." The seemingly flighty gentleman spoke to the bartender in a Nepalese dialect before motioning for the three to follow him to a table where two other men were seated. As they all approached the table, the two men got up to greet the new guests. The giddy and charming gentleman pointed at each of the two Nepalese men draped in loose-fitting clothes. "This is Aime. He is a Sherpa and will be our guide for the journey over the mountains. This is Ahupathy. He will be our driver to the location at the start of our trek." The older man pointed to himself. "And I am called Ram." Aime and Ahupathy bowed their heads and bodies slightly. With palms touching, they both spoke the traditional Nepalese phrase of greeting and respect, "Namaste." Once everyone finished introducing themselves and were seated, Matt said, "I want to thank you three in advance for all your help and guidance on this upcoming journey. All of this is very new to us. I must admit I'm a little nervous about this trek over the mountains. Julia and I have some rock climbing experience, but what we were about to undertake might be a little beyond our skill sets." "And a lot beyond my skills," chimed in Dan. "I do understand each of your concerns. Matthew, I believe your recent experience with Master Kinchison has shown you how flexible reality actually is. With that in mind, before we embark on the journey, we will set our intention for a successful trip through the mountains and down to the Valley of Enlightenment. With proper intent, our safe passage is all but guaranteed," assured Ram. Soon, members of the pub's staff brought over various Nepalese dishes and different beverages for everyone to enjoy. Taking another swig of his drink, Dan exclaimed, "While these seem to be an acquired taste, I'm actually starting to really like this Chang." "Better watch yourself. Those appear to be stronger than we think. Tomorrow could be a long day," Matt semi-joked. Yeah, I get it. I'll be good. Hopefully there will be more of this Chang where we're going," Dan laughed before taking yet another drink. "Everyone is so respectful. I find that very refreshing," said Julia. "Yes, the native people of Nepal have an ancient history, and like most Easterners, they recognize the unity that encompasses us all. While I do not wish to be disrespectful, I suspect that might not always be the case where you all come from," Ram pointed out. "You are correct with that assessment, sir. Unfortunately, many people in the West have bought into the rugged individualist mentality. While I am still young, I already see a disturbing trend in our own country and others in the Western Hemisphere. With what I have recently learned from Master Kinchison, I now recognize even more the importance of peace and unity," Matt commented. The group continued to talk and get to know each other for the next couple hours. Feeling the effects of their recent long trip to Nepal and understanding the arduous journey ahead, Matt asked Ram where they could rest for the night. Pointing towards stairs at the other side of the room, Ram told the three young Americans that sleeping arrangements had been made earlier, and one of the pub's staff would escort them upstairs to their rooms. Bidding the three gentlemen good night, Matt, Julia, and Dan grabbed their bags and followed the young woman upstairs. Chapter 1. The Earth First Players. New York City. Looking down from the rooftop edge of the 40-story building, a man in an expensive suit watched all the cars and people scurrying about below. While most would feel some vertigo from this view, this Wall Street type casually stepped upon the roof's 1-foot-wide outer ledge and calmly stared out over the city below. Briefly letting the light breeze flow past his face, the man then strode off the building's roof like he was walking along the streets below. A loud scream came from a female pedestrian as the man's body hit the sidewalk just feet from where she stood, waiting for the light to change. Just a few short hours before, John Stallman finished work for the day at the Goldman Sachs office at 200 West Street in Manhattan. Having finalized the Tycom-Syscom merger earlier that morning, John decided to leave early for the day to celebrate the huge bonus he would be receiving as leader of the merger. Due to his strong personality and genius-level ability to analyze trends in the market, John moved up the ranks quickly. Everyone in his office had a lot of respect for his abilities, but his huge ego alienated him from some of his coworkers at times. While he never let on that he cared, inside, John wished his coworkers liked him more. "If only I could tame my ego, I would get along better with people," John thought when he sat at home drinking top-shelf bourbon by himself. Walking into the Dead Rabbit, John smiled as he watched the crowd of young millennials engage in conversations throughout the bar. "Maybe I will get lucky tonight," he thought as he headed to the bar to order a drink. Soon, he was chatting up a pretty blonde and telling her all about his important job and all the bank he was making. The girl smiled and even laughed at his jokes, but inside, she felt he was a bore. After a while, John excused himself to go to the restroom. Watching the two engaged in conversations from across the bar, a rather thin and almost frail-looking guy walked over to the young blonde lady when he saw the man leave for the bathroom. Coming up to the pretty woman, Sebastian Bach smiled and said, "I have come to save you, my fair lady, from total boredom." Looking at this weird dressed man with a scraggly beard and topcoat too big for his small frame, the pretty young woman just about to tell him she was not interested when suddenly her eyes met his. As they each gazed into the other's eyes, the frail-looking man said, "You're not sure why, but you find me irresistible right now. In fact, you want to take me home and fuck my brains out." The girl smiled seductively. "You are so right. Let's get out of here." As they headed towards the door, John came out of the bathroom to witness the girl he planned to take home that night, leaving with some shabby dressed dude in a topcoat and matching top hat. "What the hell do you think you're doing, man? She's with me," shouted the Wall Street guy as he ran up and grabbed Sebastian's shoulder. The pretty blonde just smiled and told him she'd found a better option. This just enraged him more as he let go of the thin guy's shoulder and followed the two outside. Now outside, the Wall Streeter began to rant at the scraggly bearded guy, threatening him with an ass-kicking. Tired of the antics from this boring person with the expensive suit, Sebastian looked at his new date and said, "Excuse me for a moment, darling." Walking back towards the screaming man, Sebastian looked him in the eyes before saying in a low voice, "You are a sorry excuse for a man and a human being. In fact, nobody likes you. You should go to the top of that building and take an afternoon stroll off it." The frail-looking guy pointed to the 40-story building just west of where they were standing. John Stallman suddenly looked dumbfounded and nodded before turning away and walking west down the sidewalk. Sebastian wore a Cheshire cat grin on his face as he walked back to the pretty gal, waiting to take him home with her. That's it for tonight. Hope you enjoyed the live chapter reading of Journeys Through TimeSpace. It's book 1 of the Journeys Through series, or book 2, of the Journeys Through series by James Talisman. Have a good night.